7:25 in the morning, a drilling rig the size of a building simply vanished. Not tipped over, not sinking, gone, swallowed whole by a lake that was only about 10 feet deep. And that was just the beginning. Because in a matter of hours, 3.5 billion gallons of water would drain straight into the earth, like a bathtub with the plug ripped out. A canal would reverse direction. A waterfall would form where none had ever existed.
When I looked like this, I seen my boat that I had tied to the tree, and there it was going into the whirlpool. So that's the last thing I've seen, my boat tied up to the tree, going into the hole.
And 55 men trapped a quarter-mile underground would have to outrun a collapsing lake. The question isn't whether they survived, it's how something like this could happen at all. November 20th, 1980, Lake Peigneur, Louisiana. A quiet, shallow fishing lake, barely 10 feet at its deepest, sitting 9 miles north of the Gulf of Mexico. Locals fished for bass and perch here. A botanical garden called Live Oak Gardens decorated Jefferson Island on its shores. Peaceful, unremarkable, the kind of place nothing ever happens. Except something was about to happen here that had never happened anywhere on Earth before. Below the lake sat a geological oddity, a massive salt dome, a buried column of nearly pure salt pushed upward over millions of years by the pressure of surrounding rock. The Diamond Crystal Salt Company had been mining it since 1919, carving out an underground labyrinth 4 levels deep, stretching down 1,500 feet. Tunnels wide enough to drive trucks through, chambers nearly 100 feet tall, and massive salt pillars, left deliberately untouched, holding the ceiling up. That morning, 55 miners had descended to the bottom 2 levels for a routine shift. On the surface, a Texaco drilling rig, operated by a contractor called Wilson Brothers, was boring into the lake bed in search of oil. Salt domes are geological breadcrumbs for petroleum, and Texaco had every reason to believe there was a significant deposit nearby. The engineers had run their calculations, the mine had its maps. Both teams believed their operations were completely separate, totally safe. They weren't. At 4:30 a.m., the 14-inch drill bit jammed at 1,228 feet. Nothing unusual. Crews rotated, tried standard fixes, rotating the pipe, applying pressure, working it loose. By 6:30, the platform tilted slightly. Workers exchanged glances. By 7:25, the rig lurched. Metal screamed, cables snapped, and the entire structure sank completely into 10 feet of water. The crew scrambled to shore and turned around just in time to watch the lake start spinning. What they were seeing wasn't a sinkhole in the traditional sense. It was something far more violent. The drill had punched into the mine 1,300 feet below, ripping open a path into a salt cavern the size of a cathedral. And salt, unlike stone, dissolves. Every gallon of water that rushed in didn't just fill a space, it ate through the support pillars, widening the hole, accelerating the collapse, making room for even more water to pour in faster. The whirlpool that formed above grew to 150 feet across. Nearby barges, 11 of them, were dragged in one by one like toys in a drain. A tugboat with its engines running full throttle couldn't resist the pull. The crew abandoned it seconds before it vanished. Entire sections of Jefferson Island tore away from the shore and spiraled into the vortex. Trees tipped sideways and disappeared root first. Trucks, a parking lot, buildings from the botanical garden, all of it gone. About 65 acres of land vanished in a single afternoon. The noise was extraordinary. Water rushed in faster than air could escape. Pressure built underground with nowhere to go until it forced its way out. A geyser blasted out of the mine's air shaft, a column of water and debris shooting 400 feet into the sky, rattling windows miles away. Meanwhile, 1,300 feet underground, Master Electrician Junius Gaddison had already figured out what was happening. He'd seen fuel drums floating past him on a knee-high stream of muddy water and made the call instantly. 3 flashes of the mine lights, the evacuation signal. Get out, now! The problem? One elevator. 8 people at a time. Dozens of men on 2 levels with water rising fast. Salt mines don't just flood, they melt. The pillars holding up the ceiling were dissolving in real time. On the deepest level, Foreman Earl Dundas was running, not toward the elevator, toward the men still deeper in the tunnels who hadn't made it to the shaft yet. He turned back, guided them through chest-high water in the dark, got them to the cage, and was the last man to step inside before slamming the gates shut. The elevator lurched upward as the 1,500-foot level disappeared beneath the flood behind them. All 55 miners reached the surface, every single one. When investigators arrived, they found almost nothing to investigate. The drilling rig was gone. The mine was gone. The borehole had widened into an enormous sinkhole and filled with water. Every piece of physical evidence had been consumed by the disaster itself. All that remained were maps, drilling records, and the testimonies of people who'd watched a lake vanish. 2 theories emerged. Either Texaco's engineers had miscalculated their coordinates and drilled directly into the mine by mistake, a small trigonometric error placing the bit just a few feet off target, right through the mine's ceiling. Or the mine's maps were outdated, and the tunnels extended farther than anyone realized, meaning Texaco drilled exactly where they intended, just into a chamber that, according to the records, wasn't supposed to be there. The Mine Safety and Health Administration released its report in August 1981. It confirmed the sequence of events, but couldn't definitively determine whose calculations were at fault. With no physical evidence left, there was no way to know whose numbers were wrong. What they did know, the Delcambra Canal, which had always flowed out of Lake Peigneur toward the Gulf of Mexico, had reversed direction. Salt water from the Gulf came flooding back northward into the empty basin. And where the canal met the crater, it formed a 150-foot waterfall, the tallest in Louisiana's history, pouring billions of gallons of seawater into the hole for 2 full days. The lake refilled. 9 of the 11 barges actually bobbed back to the surface once the pressure equalized. But the lake they returned to wasn't the same lake. What had been a 10-foot deep freshwater ecosystem was now 200 feet deep and permanently saltwater. A new ecosystem with new species built on the wreckage of the old one. Texaco and Wilson Brothers eventually paid $32 million to Diamond Crystal for the destroyed mine, and another $12.8 million to the Botanical Garden for the land that was swallowed. The Jefferson Island mine was officially closed in 1986. No one was ever definitively held responsible for the mistake that started it all, because the mistake itself sank with the evidence. Here's what's interesting about Lake Peigneur. This wasn't a volcano, or an earthquake, or any force of nature that humans couldn't have controlled. This was a miscalculation. A drill bit, placed a few feet in the wrong direction, turned a peaceful fishing lake into the deepest lake in Louisiana, reversed a canal, and created a waterfall that didn't exist the day before. The lake is still there, still 200 feet deep, still saltwater, and somewhere at the bottom, buried under decades of sediment and silence, is a drilling rig, 11 barges, a tugboat, and a 4-level salt mine that once employed hundreds of people. All swallowed on an otherwise unremarkable Thursday morning, because somewhere the numbers were wrong, and somehow not one person died. Subscribe, because the next video on this channel, not everyone's that lucky.